Hi everyone, student meteorologist Steve Shrenkel here back with my fourth installment of NWS History with Steve. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at some of the events that rocked the National Weather Service to its core. These events were some of the most grueling and violent conflicts known to mankind. What events am I talking about? I'm of course talking about the two world wars, so please sit back and enjoy.
It all began with World War I. The future National Weather Service was under the name of the Weather Bureau at this time. The Weather Bureau may not have been considered a very important factor during this time. That assessment, however, could not be any more wrong. The Weather Bureau played a pivotal role in assisting with this warfare. It turns out weather was an important factor in regard to plane, artillery, and balloon use. Former Chief Charles F. Marvin was even quoted as saying, "Never in the history of conflicts of the world has the weather proved such a potent factor in the war that is now in progress in Europe. This is largely due to the use of aeroplanes, dirigibles, and captive balloons, to the highly perfected and powerful artillery, and to the modern methods of warfare first brought into practice into this conflict." The Weather Bureau had a rough history with the military. While it was under its control for a while, there was an ugly breakup period where the Weather Bureau was almost looked down upon by military officials. However, now the Weather Bureau had a duty in serving its country. The Weather Bureau had to work closely in cooperation with the military, settling their past differences. Their work initially involved two main areas: the forecasting of weather for military operations, and the soundings of upper air for aviators, balloonists, and artillerists. The Signal Corps cooperated with the Weather Bureau, and a forecaster was commissioned as a major in the Signal Officers Reserve Corps for the two main areas, as stated beforehand. While this was taking place, another wrench got thrown into the Weather Bureau's work. Daylight savings time was introduced in 1918. While this was helpful at the time, it caused extra work for the Weather Bureau. They now had to maintain records in standard time and issue forecasting according to the new time. On December 1st, 1918, the Weather Bureau, in collaboration with the Signal Corps, inaugurated a service of flying forecasts. This helped out all parties tremendously, and the Weather Bureau continued to progress. By the close of this war, the Weather Bureau had over 200 fully equipped meteorological stations, 1,400 substations, and 4,500 cooperative stations for meteorological work. When running, these had many commissioned employees, but even more volunteer ones at 6,000. Many advancements took place in the next 27 years. Forecasts got more advanced, and military and Weather Bureau cooperations got even greater. This was extremely crucial to what was about to happen after some time of peace. The Second World War was about to take place. Now under the Department of Commerce, the Weather Bureau again found itself surrounded by turmoil with World War II. It took complete cooperation and really tested the Weather Bureau's abilities at this point. They began by taking part in the Meteorological Defense Committee beginning in July of 1940 to monitor forecasts for worldwide operations. One of the crowning achievements during this time was the introduction of radar being used for forecasting. The Weather Bureau then began to hire women, becoming one of the first places to push for women's rights and cement women's roles in such important affairs. While the war was going on, there were also many battleships that were deployed for various reasons. Some of them were for collecting meteorological content to assist in the war. One of these ships was the legendary Pathfinder. It served in the Pacific and collected and produced thousands and thousands upon maps for the areas it explored. These sites, monitored by the Weather Bureau, continued to be helpful, even through the post-war era. Remote Pacific islands became nuclear test sites monitored by the Weather Bureau, with some areas even being eventually related to the Cold War activities. While there were many great advancements and achievements through these ships, there was also sacrifice. On the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Musket, a National Weather Service meteorologist lost his life when the ship was sunk by enemy fire in the North Atlantic. This man was Luther H. Brady from Atlanta. In 1942, a ship departed from Boston to collect weather information in the North Atlantic. It was later discovered that the ship was sunk by a German submarine and everyone was killed, including Brady. He was only 27 when he was killed in action. His dedication in serving the country by offering his meteorological knowledge to help with the war allowed him to be recognized even to this day. In September of this year, he was honored with the Purple Heart for his sacrifice. The Weather Bureau went through a lot during its time involved in the World Wars. Some of it helped it achieve heights never seen before and allowed for technology never imaginable to develop and be used to this very day. Some of it was negative, with the men and women lost during this time serving their country. Most of it, however, was extremely positive, bringing the Weather Bureau and military to work more closely together than ever before, with social boundaries also being broken. The world wars may be seen as a time of conflict, turmoil, and violence, but for the National Weather Service, they may just have given them a necessary push to continue to innovate and achieve.
Thank you for watching NWS History with Steve. If you enjoyed this video and want to check out some more awesome content, be sure to check out our Twitter page at CalUWX, our Facebook page, California University of Pennsylvania-Meteorology, our Instagram page, CalUWX, and our YouTube channel, California University of Pennsylvania-Meteorology. Thank you, and I hope you tune in next time.